Okay, let's take a look at question number 26. We're looking for end behavior. The first polynomial we have is f of x equals negative 4x to the fifth plus 6x cubed plus 2x. And when we look at this, all we care about is the very last value. I'm sorry, the very first value, because it is the one with the highest exponent value. The reason why we care about that is that for extreme values, whatever happens here is monumentally more impactful than this. Okay, so all I care about is negative 4x to the fifth, and what we want to know is as x approaches negative infinity, what happens to f of x? And as x approaches infinity, what happens to f of x? So the way I like to think about this is what happens when you plug in a negative value here? Well, if you raise it to an odd power, it comes out as a negative, and a negative times a negative is a positive. So this comes out as a positive. And if I plug in a positive value in here, raise it to the fifth, I get a positive, and times a negative, it becomes a negative. Okay. Other ways you can learn how to do this is to realize that if it's x cubed, it starts low and ends high. And so if you have a negative value, whatever the number is irrelevant, just the fact that you have a negative sign, it's going to reverse it. So it's going to start high and end low. If it's an even power, then they would both go up. The reason that would be the case is anytime you multiply something by an even amount of terms, itself by an even amount of terms, negative times a negative is a positive, so you'd have a series of positive values. Okay. And if you had a negative in front, then that would flip them both down. So you can memorize that, or you can just say, hey, what happens when I plug in a negative value for x? What happens when I plug in a positive value for x? And that would determine my end behavior. So this right here would be your final answer. Moving on to the next one, we have g of x equals 5x times quantity 2x minus 3 cubed times quantity x plus 2 squared. Now, for this one, you could try to FOIL the whole thing out, and I actually typed it into a calculator to show you what you would end up getting. This would be monumentally complicated because you would have to distribute, you'd have to FOIL multiple times, and it'd be quite painful, and the numbers would get very, very large. So there's got to be an easier way to do that, and there is. All we care about are the highest powers in each set. So 5x is still just 5x. Here we're going to have 2x, and if you think about it, we're going to end up getting, let me do this, let's see if I can erase it. Yeah. So you're going to end up doing 2x times 2x, it's going to give you 4x, and then later on you're going to multiply by another 2x, which is going to give you 8x cubed. So we know we're going to get another 8x cubed, and then the last one we're going to have x and squared, so it gives you x squared. So if we multiply this out, we get 40x, and the rule is that when you multiply, you add your exponents. And so it's 1 plus 3 is 4, plus 2 is 6. And to show you that I'm not lying, the very first term is 40x to the 6. And again, remember, for very big values, this, because it's to the power of 6, it becomes so much bigger than the rest of this. Even though it's a lot of stuff, it's going to be very, very small compared to 40x to the 6 for very large values of x. Okay, so 40x to the 6, we apply the same rules that we previously did over here. So we're going to say as x approaches negative infinity, what happens to f of x? And as x approaches infinity, what happens to f of x? So what happens to y for very small values and for very large values? So let's see. So obviously, if it's even, then when you plug it in, it'll come out as a positive no matter what. And multiply by 40, which is a positive, you're always going to get a positive. Which also coincides with, wrong picture, this picture where they both go up. Okay, cool beans. Let's look at the last one. So the last one's pretty straightforward. Again, all I care about is the highest power, so negative 8x to the fourth. We say as x approaches negative infinity, what happens to f of x? As x approaches infinity, what happens to f of x? Well, what do we know? Well, for anything that's even, it'll always come out as a positive, but a positive times a negative is a negative, so both of these are going to be negative infinity. And there's my answer. So hopefully that makes sense, and I'll see you in the next video.